The lower market of Crosspoint Delta smelled like oil, burnt metal, and too many different species packed into one space. Taeyang walked through the crowd with his head down, carrying a datapad that showed his delivery route for the day. He had 3 more shipments to move before his shift ended. 3 more, and then he could send this week's earnings back home to Earth. He was thinking about his sister's message when the first Kragath stepped in front of him. The creature was massive, nearly 8 feet tall with thick scales that looked like natural armor. Its eyes were yellow and cold. 2 more Kragath moved in from the sides, blocking any escape route. The crowds around them started to move away, creating an empty circle. "You're the human who touched our cargo," the first Kragath said. Its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Taeyang stopped walking. He kept his voice calm. "I only delivered what my supervisor assigned me. I didn't open anything or change anything." "Liar," the second Kragath hissed. 3 containers were damaged. Human prints were found. That was impossible. Taeyang never damaged cargo. He was careful always. This was a setup, he realized. Someone wanted trouble, and humans were easy targets on stations like this. Most species thought humans were weak. Soft skin, fragile bones, no natural weapons. "Check the security footage," Taeyang said. "It'll show I didn't damage anything." The third Kragath laughed, a harsh sound. "We don't need footage. We need payment. 5,000 credits, or we teach you what happens to thieves." 5,000 credits. That was 3 months of salary. Taeyang's hands tightened on his datapad. "I don't have that kind of money." "Then we take it from your flesh," the first Kragath said, pulling out an energy baton. The weapon hummed with blue light. The crowd around them grew larger. People from a dozen different species watched, waiting. Some looked curious. Others looked entertained. No one looked like they would help. Taeyang took a step back. His heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. He'd been in bad situations before. Rule 1, always look for exits. But the Kragath had positioned themselves well. Rule 2, de-escalate if possible. That wasn't working. Rule 3, if you have to fight, fight to survive. "I don't want trouble," Taeyang said one last time. "Too late, soft skin." The first Kragath swung its baton. Taeyang dropped his datapad and ducked under the swing. The weapon crackled over his head, missing by inches. He rolled to the side as the second Kragath charged, its heavy feet shaking the floor. The crowd roared. This was entertainment for them now. Taeyang came up near a vendor's stall selling metal parts. He grabbed a heavy pipe from the display and swung it hard against the first Kragath's knee joint. The creature roared in pain but didn't fall. Its armor was too thick. The second Kragath grabbed Taeyang from behind, lifting him off the ground. Its arms were like iron bands, crushing his ribs. Taeyang couldn't breathe. Black spots appeared in his vision. He slammed his head backward, hitting the Kragath's snout. The creature's grip loosened just enough. Taeyang grabbed one of the creature's fingers and bent it back hard until he heard something crack. The Kragath dropped him with a howl. Taeyang hit the ground and gasped for air. His ribs screamed with pain. Probably cracked. He forced himself to stand. The third Kragath came at him with its baton raised high. Taeyang didn't try to block. Instead, he stepped forward into the creature's reach, too close for the long weapon to be effective. He drove his elbow into the soft spot under the Kragath's arm, then kicked the back of its knee. The creature stumbled. Taeyang grabbed the baton as it fell from the Kragath's grip. Now he had a weapon. The first Kragath charged again, angry and limping. Taeyang waited until the last second, then sidestepped and brought the baton down on the creature's spine. The electric charge discharged with a crack. The Kragath collapsed, twitching. 2 down. 1 to go. The second Kragath, the one with the broken finger, was more cautious now. It circled Taeyang slowly, looking for an opening. Taeyang's vision was blurry from pain. His ribs hurt with every breath. His hands were shaking, but he didn't fall. He couldn't fall. If he fell here, they would kill him. And his family needed him. The Kragath lunged. Taeyang swung the baton, but the creature caught his wrist with its good hand. They struggled for control of the weapon. The Kragath was stronger, much stronger. It twisted Taeyang's arm, forcing him to his knees. Taeyang saw a discarded tool on the ground near his foot. Some kind of welding torch. He kicked it up, caught it with his free hand, and activated it. A jet of white-hot flame shot out. The Kragath screamed and let go, stumbling backward. Taeyang didn't hesitate. He swung the baton one more time, hitting the creature in the head. It fell hard and stayed down. Taeyang stood in the center of the circle, surrounded by unconscious Kragath. He was covered in bruises and blood. His ribs sent waves of agony through his body with every breath. The baton fell from his shaking hands, clattering on the metal floor, but he was standing. He hadn't fallen. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. To them, it had been a good show. Taeyang didn't care about the applause. He just wanted to sit down before he collapsed. That's when he saw her. She stood at the edge of the crowd, taller than most species around her. Her skin was pale silver, almost luminous. Her eyes were deep purple, with vertical pupils like a cat's. She wore the uniform of the Vryn Imperial Guard, dark and elegant, with medals that caught the light. She was staring at him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Lyra had seen many fights in her life. She was a warrior, trained since childhood in the Vryn way of combat. She had watched gladiators, studied soldiers, observed predators on 100 different worlds. But she had never seen anything quite like this. The humans should have died. 3 Kragith warriors against 1 unarmed dockworker. It should have been over in seconds. The smart thing would have been to run, to surrender, to beg for mercy. But the human had fought, not with strength. The Kragith were far stronger, not with weapons. He had started with nothing, not even with skill. His movements were rough, untrained. He had fought with pure human stubbornness, with the refusal to accept defeat, with adaptation and improvisation and the will to survive no matter what. When the human had been lifted off the ground, choking, Lyra had thought it was over. But he had found a way. When he was disarmed, he had armed himself. When he should have collapsed from pain, he had kept standing. Lyra felt something stir in her chest, something primal and powerful. In Vryn culture, strength was everything, and she had just witnessed a new kind of strength. She whispered to herself so quietly that no one else could hear, "I want him to be mine." Station security was pushing through the crowd now, too late to stop the fight. The human just stood there waiting, not running. Even now he faced the consequences without flinching. Lyra made a decision. She stepped forward into the circle, her rank clearing a path instantly. The security officers stopped when they saw her uniform. She looked at the human. He looked back at her, his dark eyes showing pain but no fear. Yes, Lyra thought. This one is special, and she would make him hers. The security officers looked nervous when Lyra stepped forward. Everyone recognized the uniform of the Vryn Imperial Guard. The Vryn Empire controlled this entire sector of space. What one of their commanders wanted, they usually got. Commander Lyra, the lead security officer, said, bowing slightly. He was a Trellin with gray skin and 4 arms. "We're handling this situation." "I witnessed the entire fight," Lyra said, her voice carrying authority. The Kragith initiated combat. The human defended himself. Self-defense is legal under station law. The Kragith, who were conscious enough to understand, groaned in protest, but no one argued with a Vryn commander. The security officer hesitated, then nodded. "We'll need statements from everyone involved." "You have mine," Lyra said. The human acted appropriately. The Kragith clan will pay station fines for disturbing the peace and initiating unauthorized combat. She looked at the fallen Kragith with cold eyes. "Be grateful I don't recommend worse." The security team started gathering the Kragith, calling for medical assistance. The crowd began to disperse, the show over. Lyra turned her attention to the human. He was still standing, but barely. His breathing was shallow and painful. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye, but his posture remained straight, refusing to show weakness. "What's your name?" Lyra asked. "Taeyang," he said. His voice was steady despite the pain. "Taeyang," Lyra repeated, tasting the unfamiliar sounds. "You need medical attention." "I need to finish my deliveries," Taeyang said. "My shift isn't over." Lyra felt a flash of surprise, then something like respect. Injured, having just survived a death match, and his concern was his work duty. "Your shift is over," she said. "Come with me, it wasn't really a request." Taeyang seemed to understand that. He nodded, wincing at the movement. Lyra led him through the station's upper levels, areas where dockworkers rarely went. The corridors here were cleaner, wider. Other species moved out of Lyra's way without being asked. Taeyang followed, limping but keeping pace. They entered a private medical facility. The doctor, a being with tentacles instead of arms, scanned Taeyang with efficient instruments. 3 cracked ribs, the doctor announced. Extensive bruising. Minor fractures in the left hand. Nothing permanent. He'll heal. The doctor applied healing gel to the injuries and gave Taeyang an injection for the pain. Within minutes, the sharpest edges of agony faded. Taeyang could breathe easier. "Thank you," he said to Lyra when they were alone again. "I'll pay you back for the medical costs." "That won't be necessary," Lyra said. She studied him with those strange purple eyes. "I have a different payment in mind." Taeyang tensed. He'd heard stories about what powerful aliens sometimes wanted from humans. "What kind of payment?" "Your service," Lyra said. "I'm assembling a crew for an expedition. I want you on it." That wasn't what Taeyang had expected. "I'm just a cargo hauler. I'm not a soldier or an explorer." "I know what you are," Lyra said. "I watched you fight. You adapt. You improvise. You refuse to quit. Those are the qualities I need." Taeyang shook his head. "I can't. I have responsibilities. My family depends on my income." Lyra pulled out a data tablet and entered some information. She turned it to show him. The number on the screen made Taeyang's eyes widen. "This is the payment for the expedition. 1 mission. Approximately 4 weeks. It was more money than Taeyang made in 2 years. More than enough to clear his family's debts. Enough to secure their future." "What's the mission?" he asked carefully. "The Vryn Empire lost a warship in the Shattered Reach," Lyra explained. "It contains technology we need to recover. The region is dangerous. Unstable gravity, radiation storms, and unknown threats. Many crews have tried. Most didn't return. And you think I'll make a difference?" "Yes," Lyra said simply. "Your species has something most others lack. You saw it today. When you should have died, you found a way to survive. That's what I need in the Shattered Reach." Taeyang was silent for a long moment. The smart answer was no. He wasn't trained for this. He could die, but that money could change everything for his family. His younger brother could finish school. His sister could get the surgery she needed. "Just 1 mission?" he asked. "1 mission," Lyra confirmed. "After that, you're free to return to Earth if you wish." "When do we leave?" 3 days. "I'll send you the details." Lyra stood, preparing to leave. Then she paused. "Why did you fight them, Taeyang?" "You could have run." Taeyang thought about the question. "Running doesn't solve the problem. It just delays it. If I ran today, they'd come back tomorrow. Or they'd target someone else. Sometimes you have to stand and face things." Lyra's expression changed slightly. Among her people, such words were wisdom. "You are more than you appear to be," she said quietly. After she left, Taeyang sat alone in the medical room, wondering what he'd just agreed to. He touched his ribs gently. The pain was still there, dulled by medicine but present, a reminder that he'd survived. He thought about the Vryn commander. There had been something strange in the way she looked at him. Not the way most aliens looked at humans, with dismissal or curiosity. She had looked at him like he mattered. Lyra returned to her quarters on the station, her mind restless. She'd assembled crews before. She'd recruited warriors and specialists from across the galaxy. But she had never felt this way about a recruit. When she'd seen Taeyang fight, something had awakened in her. The Vryn valued strength above all else. They admired predators, warriors, and conquerors. But Taeyang had shown a different kind of strength. The strength to endure, the strength to adapt, the strength to refuse defeat. In Vryn culture, warriors claimed those they deemed worthy. When a Vryn saw someone they respected, someone whose strength called to them, they could offer a claim. A bond. It was both a challenge and an honor. Lyra had whispered those words in the market, barely aware she was saying them aloud. "I want him to be mine." It was inappropriate. He was human, a species most of the galaxy considered inferior. He was a dock worker, not a warrior. By all the standards of her culture, he should mean nothing to her. But she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd stood at the end of that fight, broken but unbeaten, damaged but not defeated. She had 3 days before the expedition launched. 3 days to focus on preparing the mission. 3 days to forget about the strange feeling in her chest when she'd seen him stand. But Lyra suspected 3 days wouldn't be enough. Taeyang returned to his small quarters in the station's lower levels. He sent a message to his family, telling them he'd be away for a few weeks on a special job. He didn't mention the fight. He didn't mention the danger. They worried enough already. He lay on his narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about the expedition. About the Shattered Reach and lost warships and unknown dangers, and about the silver-skinned commander with purple eyes who had looked at him like she'd found something unexpected. 3 days, he thought. 3 days until his life changed completely. He just didn't know how much. The ship was called the Bright Talon, a Vryn military vessel built for long-range exploration. It was sleek and dangerous looking, with weapon systems that could tear apart smaller ships. Taeyang stood in the docking bay carrying his small pack of belongings and felt very small. "First time on a military ship?" a voice asked behind him. Taeyang turned to see another human. The man was older, maybe 40, with scars on his face and arms. He wore practical work clothes and had the bearing of someone who'd seen combat. "Yes," Taeyang admitted. "I usually work cargo haulers." The man extended his hand. "Hyun, former Earth military, now I work wherever the pay is good." "You must be the guy who fought 3 Kregath unarmed." "Word travels fast," Taeyang said, shaking his hand. "On stations like Delta?" "Always." Hyun smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Commander Lyra told me to look after you. Said you were tough but inexperienced." "She's not wrong." A third human appeared, younger than both of them, carrying a toolkit that looked heavier than he was. He had messy hair and oil stains on his jacket. "Are you two the other humans?" "I'm Doyen, ship's engineer." "Well, assistant engineer. The main engineer is a Vryn, but he doesn't like working in the small spaces, so I do most of the actual repair work." Hyun looked Doyen over with amusement. "How old are you, kid?" 23, Doyen said defensively. "And I'm a certified engineer. I know more about ship systems than most people twice my age." "Easy," Hyun said, raising his hands. "Just asking." A sharp whistle cut through the docking bay. Commander Lyra stood at the ship's entrance, her silver skin gleaming under the lights. "All crew members aboard. We launch in 20 minutes. The crew gathered in the ship's briefing room. Besides the 3 humans, there were 8 Vryn warriors, all tall and intimidating. There was also a Belkari pilot, a species known for their multiple eyes and quick reflexes. Lyra stood at the front, a holographic display showing their destination. "The Shattered Reach," she said. 3 weeks ago, the warship Silverclaw was lost in this region while investigating anomalies. Our mission is to locate it, recover its data core, and return. The region is unstable. Navigation will be difficult. We expect hostile encounters." One of the Vryn warriors, a large male with dark marks on his skin, spoke up. "Commander, why do we have humans on this mission?" "No offense to them, but they're fragile." Several other Vryn nodded in agreement. Taeyang felt their eyes on him, assessing and dismissive. Lyra's voice turned cold. "I chose every member of this crew. If you question my decisions, you can return to the station and explain to command why you're refusing a direct assignment." The warrior said nothing more. "Humans," Lyra continued, "have proven themselves valuable in situations requiring adaptation and unconventional thinking. They will serve as support specialists. Anyone who has a problem with that can speak now." No one spoke. The journey to the Shattered Reach took 5 days. Taeyang spent most of that time learning the ship's layout and trying to stay out of the way. The Vryn crew kept their distance, clearly unconvinced that humans belonged on a military vessel. Hyun taught him basic combat skills in the training room. "You've got good instincts," Hyun said after a sparring session. "But instinct only gets you so far. You need technique." "I'm not a fighter," Taeyang said, breathing hard. "You are now," Hyun replied. "You signed up for this mission. That makes you a fighter whether you like it or not." Doyun spent his time in the engine room, making friends with the ship's systems if not the crew. He showed Taeyang how to access maintenance tunnels and override basic security locks. "Just in case," he said. "It's always good to know the ways most people don't think about." Lyra called Taeyang to her office on the 3rd day. The room was simple but elegant, with decorations that showed her military history. She was reviewing tactical data when he entered. "How are you adjusting?" she asked. "Well enough," Taeyang said. "The crew doesn't trust me, but I expected that." "Trust is earned," Lyra said. "You'll have opportunities to prove yourself." She studied him with those intense purple eyes. "Tell me about Earth. I've never been to your homeworld." Taeyang was surprised by the personal question. "It's crowded, diverse. We have problems, but we're working on them." "Why do you ask?" "I'm curious about what produces people like you," Lyra said. "Your species has only been in space for 2 generations, yet you spread quickly. You adapt to environments that would kill most species. You're physically weak, but you compensate in unexpected ways." "We're survivors," Taeyang said simply. "We've had to be." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, survivors." She seemed to think about that word for a moment. "The Vryn way is different. We believe in strength and dominance. We test ourselves through combat and conquest. But watching you fight those Kragath, I wondered if there are other kinds of strength we've overlooked. Every species has their own strengths, Taeyang said. True, but not every species refuses to fall when falling would be easier. Lyra's gaze was intense. That interests me. Taeyang felt uncomfortable under that stare. There was something in it he couldn't quite identify. Not hostility, something else. Something that made his heart beat faster. We're approaching the reach, Lyra said, breaking the moment. Prepare yourself. Things will get difficult from here. She wasn't wrong. The shattered reach was beautiful and terrifying. Space itself seemed broken here. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared without warning. Radiation storms painted the darkness with colors that hurt to look at. Debris floated everywhere, from tiny particles to chunks of destroyed ships the size of buildings. Sensors are unreliable, the Belkari pilot announced. I'm navigating by sight and instinct. They found their first derelict on the second day in the reach. An old cargo ship torn open, its crew long dead. Lyra led a team aboard to search for salvage. Taeyang, Hyun, and Doyun went with them. The Vrin warriors moved through the dead ship with weapons ready. Taeyang followed, his stomach tight with anxiety. Something feels wrong, Hyun whispered. He was right. The ship had been torn apart from the inside, not by weapons or collision. Something had ripped through the walls. Then the defense drones activated. Ancient automated systems, still functioning after years in the void. They appeared from hidden compartments, firing energy weapons. The Vrin returned fire with disciplined precision, but the drones were fast and numerous. Fall back, Lyra ordered. Taeyang ran toward the exit, but a drone dropped from the ceiling in front of him. Its weapon charged, targeting his chest. No time to dodge, no time to run. Yoon slammed into him from the side, pushing him out of the path. The energy blast hit Hyun instead, burning through his shoulder. He went down with a cry of pain. Taeyang didn't think. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and threw it at the drone. It was a desperate move, and it worked. The metal hit the drone's sensor, disorienting it for just a second. Doyen appeared, wielding some kind of tool from his kit. He jammed it into the drone's casing and activated it. Electricity arced through the machine. It sparked and fell. Move, Doyen shouted. Taeyang grabbed Hyun, supporting his weight, and they ran. More drones pursued them, but the Vrin warriors covered their retreat, destroying the machines one by one. They made it back to the ship. The medical officer treated Hyun's wound while Lyra gathered the team. This is just the beginning, she said. The reach is full of dangers we can't predict. Stay alert. Trust your team. And remember, we're all here for the same goal. She looked at Taeyang when she said that last part. He'd saved Hyun, worked with Doyen, survived his first real danger. The Vrin warriors looked at him differently now. Not with acceptance, not yet. But with something less than dismissal. It was a start. They found the Silver Claw drifting near a collapsed star. The warship was intact on the outside, but its engines were cold and no signals came from within. It looked like a tomb floating in space. No life signs, the sensor officer reported, but there's a lot of interference. I can't get clear readings. Lyra studied the derelict ship carefully. We go in. Search teams of 4. Weapons ready. Retrieve the data core and withdraw. Taeyang was assigned to Lyra's team, along with Hyun and a Vrin warrior named Kale. They docked with the warship's side airlock and entered carefully, lights cutting through the darkness inside. The ship was wrong. That was the first thing Taeyang noticed. The corridors were too quiet. There should have been some sound, even on a dead ship, but there was only silence, thick and oppressive. Blood here, Kale said, pointing to dark stains on the walls. Old dried. They moved deeper into the ship. Every door they passed was sealed from the inside, as if the crew had been trying to keep something out. Or keep something in, Commander Hyun said quietly. I've seen situations like this before. When a ship's crew seals themselves in, it usually means they were running from something. Stay alert, Lyra ordered. They reached the data core room. The door had been torn open, not cut or blasted. Torn, like something with incredible strength had ripped through the metal. Inside, the data core was still intact, glowing faintly with stored information. Doyen, Lyra said into her communicator. We found the core. Prepare to receive it. Copy that, Doyen's voice crackled back. But Commander, I'm detecting strange readings from your location. Heat signatures, multiple, they're moving. Taeyang felt his skin prickle. Moving where? Toward you, Doyen said. Fast. They came from the ventilation shafts. Things that had once been Vryn crew members but weren't anymore. Their bodies moved wrong, jerky, and unnatural. Their eyes were empty, and growing from their flesh were gray tendrils pulsing and writhing. Hollow, Kale whispered in horror. The ship is infected with hollow. The creatures attacked without sound. Kale fired his weapon, the energy blasts tearing through the first wave. But more kept coming, dozens of them pouring from every opening. Fall back, Lyra ordered. Retrieve the data core. Hyun grabbed the core while Taeyang and Lyra covered their retreat. The creatures were fast, unnaturally fast. One leaped at Taeyang. He shot it down, but another grabbed his leg. The gray tendrils tried to wrap around his ankle, cold and wrong against his skin. Hyun fired, destroying the creature. Don't let them touch you. They infect through contact. They ran through the corridors, the infected crew members pursuing them. The ship seemed to wake up around them, every shadow hiding more threats. They reached a junction when Doyen's voice came through again. Commander, the other teams are trapped. The hollow are blocking the main corridors. Lyra's face tightened. Where are they? Deck 3, Section 7. But you can't reach them. There are too many infected between you. Taeyang looked at the ship's layout on his datapad. Most routes were blocked. But there was one way. The maintenance shafts, he said. They run parallel to the main corridors. We can use them. Those shafts are too small for Vryn, Kale said. But not for humans, Taeyang replied. He looked at Lyra. I can go. I can reach them and guide them to an escape route. It's too dangerous, Lyra said. They'll die if we don't help them, Taeyang said. And I'm the only one small enough to fit through those shafts. Lyra wanted to refuse. He could see it in her eyes. But she was a commander, and she knew he was right. Go, Hyun, go with him. Kale and I will draw the hollow away. They split up. Taeyang and Hyun crawled through the maintenance shafts, the confined spaces barely wide enough for them to move. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of combat as Lyra and Kale fought the infected. They reached the trapped team, 6 Vryn warriors surrounded by hollow creatures running low on ammunition. Taeyang used the ship's internal systems to create a distraction. He triggered the fire suppression systems, flooding a section with foam. It confused the hollow long enough for the warriors to break through. This way, Taeyang shouted, leading them through a route he'd mapped out. Through cargo bays and engineering spaces, avoiding the main corridors where the hollow waited. They were almost to the docking port when they heard Lyra's voice, strained and urgent. Team 2, we're trapped. Deck 2, Section 4. Kale is down. I'm wounded. I can't, the transmission cut off. Hyun grabbed Taeyang's arm. We need to get these warriors to safety first. You take them, Taeyang said. I'm going back for Lyra. That's suicide. Then it's suicide, Taeyang said. But I'm going. He ran back into the darkness, following the signal from Lyra's communicator. He found her in a sealed compartment, bleeding from a wound in her side. Kale lay nearby, unconscious. The door was shaking as something on the other side tried to break through. Taeyang, Lyra said weakly. You should have left. Not an option, he replied. He checked her wound. Bad but not fatal if they moved quickly. He checked Kale, still breathing, but he couldn't carry both of them. The door was bending under the assault. Minutes, maybe seconds before it broke, Taeyang made a decision. He activated his communicator. Doyen, I need you to vent the atmosphere from this section. All of it now. That'll kill everything in there. Doyen protested, including the hollow. Do it on my mark. He pulled Lyra and Kale into a small equipment locker, sealing them in. It had its own air supply, enough for a few minutes. He squeezed in with them, the space barely big enough for 3 bodies. What are you doing? Lyra asked. Solving the problem, Taeyang said. He triggered the communicator. Mark! The compartment depressurized. The air rushed out with a howl. The hollow creatures, biological beings despite their horror, couldn't survive in vacuum. They died, their infected bodies freezing in the void. 2 minutes later, Doyen restored atmosphere. Taeyang opened the locker, checking to make sure it was safe. The hollow were gone. Dead and frozen, we need to move, he said, helping Lyra up. She leaned against him, too weak to protest. They made it back to the ship. The medical officer immediately took Lyra and Kale for treatment. The data core was secured, all crew members accounted for. The mission was complete. Hours later, after the wounds were treated and the ship had left the Reach behind, Lyra called Taeyang to a private compartment. She looked pale but steady. "You saved my life," she said. "You would have done the same," Taeyang replied. "Yes, but I need to tell you something." She took a breath. "Among my people, when a warrior sees someone worthy, someone whose strength calls to them, they make a claim. It's a bond, a declaration." Taeyang felt something shift in the air between them. "In the market, when I saw you fight, I whispered those words." Lyra continued. "I want him to be mine." It was instinct, not thought. But now, after everything we've been through, I understand what it meant. "Lyra, I'm not claiming you," she said quickly. "I know humans don't work that way. But I needed you to know. You're not just a crew member to me. You're more." Taeyang looked at her. This alien warrior who had shown him respect when others showed only dismissal. "Among humans," he said slowly, "we don't claim each other. We choose each other. It takes time, understanding, shared experience. Do we have that?" Lyra asked quietly. "Maybe the start of it," Taeyang said. Lyra's expression softened into something almost vulnerable. "Then I would like to know more about choosing." The journey back to Crosspoint Delta took 6 days. Taeyang spent most of that time thinking about what came next. The mission was complete. The payment would be transferred to his account. He could return to Earth, clear his family's debts, and resume his quiet life as a cargo hauler. That had been the plan. That was what he'd agreed to. But something had changed. Hyun found him in the observation deck staring at the stars. "Thinking about home?" the older man asked. "Always," Taeyang said. "My sister needs medical treatment. My brother needs to finish his education. The money from this mission will handle all of that. But," Hyun prompted, "but I keep thinking about the Hollow, about the derelict ships we saw, about the dangers out here." Taeyang turned to face him. "Earth is safe, relatively speaking. But this part of space, there's so much we don't understand. So much that could threaten us. And you think you can make a difference?" Hyun asked. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I just found something out here that I didn't have on Earth." Taeyang paused. "Purpose, I guess." Hyun nodded slowly. "I left Earth 20 years ago. Thought I'd go back someday. Haven't yet. Space has a way of holding on to you once it gets its hooks in." He clapped Taeyang on the shoulder. "Whatever you decide, make sure it's what you want, not what you think you should want." Doyen was less philosophical. When Taeyang asked him what he planned to do after they returned, the young engineer shrugged. "Keep working. There's always someone who needs ships fixed. Besides, working in space pays better than working on Earth, and the problems are more interesting." "You don't miss home?" Taeyang asked. "Home is wherever I'm working on something cool," Doyen said with a grin. "Right now that's out here." The Vryn warriors treated Taeyang differently now. Not with full acceptance, not yet, but with respect. Kale, recovered from his injuries, approached him in the mess hall. "You saved my life," the warrior said, "and the commander's. That is a debt my clan does not forget." "You would have done the same," Taeyang replied. "Perhaps. But you did it first." Kale extended his arm in a Vryn gesture of respect. "You fight differently than we do. But you fight well." It was, Taeyang realized, the closest thing to a compliment he'd ever received from a Vryn warrior. Lyra called him to her office 2 days before they reached the station. She looked different out of combat gear, wearing simple clothing that made her seem less like a commander and more like just a person. "The mission reports are filed," she said. "Your payment has been processed. As agreed, you're free to return to Earth." "And you?" Taeyang asked. "What happens to you?" "I've been offered a promotion. Fleet commander based on Vryn Prime. It's an honor. The recognition my family has wanted for me." She didn't sound happy about it, but Taeyang prompted, echoing Hyun's earlier question. "But Vryn Prime is not welcoming to humans. Your species is seen as curiosities there at best. At worst, as inferior creatures not worth acknowledging." Lyra met his eyes. "If I take the promotion, I would be returning to a world where who you are means nothing. And if you don't take it, then I continue as I am. Leading missions, exploring, finding challenges in the unknown." She paused. "With the possibility of working with certain individuals I've come to respect." Taeyang understood what she was really asking. "The mission is over. My contract is fulfilled. You don't owe me anything." "This isn't about obligation," Lyra said. "This is about choice. You taught me that, remember? Humans choose each other. They don't claim or conquer. They build something together over time. Yes. Then I'm choosing to stay out here, Lyra said, whether you return to Earth or not. But I hope... She hesitated, and Taeyang realized how vulnerable she looked in that moment. I hope you'll choose to stay too. Not for me. For yourself, but perhaps with me. Taeyang thought about his family, about the debts that would now be cleared, about his brother and sister, who would be safe and secure with the money he'd earned. They didn't need him to return. They needed him to be safe and happy. And he thought about the fight in the market, about refusing to fall, about finding strength he didn't know he had, about the strange feeling of belonging he discovered on this ship with this crew on this mission. I need to send a message to Earth first, he said. Tell them what I've decided. Lyra's expression didn't change, but he saw hope flicker in her purple eyes. The message to his family was hard to write. He explained about the mission, the payment, and what it would mean for them. He told them he was safe and that he'd found work that mattered. He didn't tell them about the hollow or how close he'd come to dying. They worried enough already. At the end, he wrote, I know I said I'd come home, but I think I need to stay out here a little longer. There's work to do and I'm good at it. I'll visit when I can, but this is where I need to be right now. I hope you understand. When they docked at Cross Point Delta, the crew dispersed to various duties. Hyun and Doyeon both signed contracts for another expedition. Someone has to keep you alive, Hyun said with a wry smile. Taeyang stood in the departure terminal watching ships come and go. A transport to Earth would leave in 3 hours. He could be on it. He could return to his old life. Instead, he turned and walked toward the upper levels of the station, where Lyra had said she'd be waiting. He found her in a small garden area, one of the few green spaces on the station. She stood among earth plants, looking out of place and beautiful. I sent my family the money, he said. They'll be fine. Better than fine. And you? Lyra asked. Will you be fine? I think so. Taeyang moved closer. I told them I wasn't coming home yet, that I found something out here worth staying for. What did you find? Purpose, challenge, a place where what I can do matters. He paused. And someone who sees me as more than just a weak human. Lyra's smile was small but genuine. You were never weak. I saw that from the beginning. I know. That's why I'm staying. Taeyang held out his hand, a human gesture. So, about this choosing thing. How does it work? Lyra looked at his hand, then took it carefully. Her skin was cool and smooth against his. I believe you mentioned something about dinner and conversation? Usually in that order, Taeyang confirmed. I can do that, Lyra said. Her fierce predatory features softened into something warmer. Though I should warn you, Vrin courtship is very different from human courtship. Good thing we have time to figure it out, Taeyang said. They walked through the station together, two beings from impossible backgrounds, choosing to build something new. Around them, the galaxy spun on, full of dangers and wonders and unknowns. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. A human who refused to fall and a Vrin who learned that strength came in many forms. And that, Taeyang thought, was enough to build a future on. Somewhere in the lower docks, cargo still needed hauling. Ships still needed crews. The shattered reach still held its mysteries, but Taeyang wasn't running anymore. He wasn't just surviving. He was choosing his own path, and he was choosing to walk it with someone who had seen him fight unarmed, broken and bleeding, refusing to surrender. Someone who had whispered words that changed everything. I want him to be mine. But in the end, they belonged to each other, not through claiming or conquest, through choice, and that made all the difference.